Steiny and Goo were at each other's throats for 4 hours about this, and it was great radio, as it always is. I don't think you and I maybe disagree as much as those two do, but I know we are also on opposite sides of this. So I'm just going to straight up ask you, for any of our new listeners, what would make this a successful season for the Warriors this year, the 2023-2024 season? What would make it a success for you?
For me, it is get into the actual playoffs and win a series. And I had said that before, and I know now it looks to be more of a long shot than it did before, but you got to make sure you make it out of the play-in game. And it looked more of a certainty than it did the last couple of games. And you bounce back at San Antonio, fine. Not even really a quality win, but it's a win. And for this team, any win's a quality win. I would like to see them get into the playoffs and beat a playoff opponent, which again, at this point is a bit of a long shot, because if you wind up in the 9-10 play-in game, if you win that and then you go in against the 7-8 play-in game loser and you beat them, then you have to go up against the number 1 seed, which looks to be like it's going to be Denver. So even if you don't go ahead and beat Denver, would I consider this year a success? Probably not. With all the talent you have, the young guys have played great, and you've kind of just given it away at so many different turns this year. It's hard for me to look at that result and say, yeah, successful year.
Yeah, I get that. But I think maybe where I'm coming from is with a little bit of information and knowledge from this season. I'm coming from a perspective of not before the season began. I think preseason there was a lot of belief, faith, expectations that this could be a team that competes for a championship. But given what we know about this Warriors team now and everything that's happened this regular season, for me, it drastically changes my perspective and what I am hopeful for this team. So let's take it from the beginning of the season. Draymond Green missed the first 2 games because he was dealing with a sprained ankle that he rolled just before the season started. But let's just, for the sake of the argument, say that the starting lineup the Warriors used to begin the season. Let's include Draymond in that because that's what it would have been. Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Andrew Wiggins, Draymond Green, and Kevon Looney. Let's run through 4 of those 5 starters. First of all, Draymond Green. We all know what's happened to him this season. When he's been available, he's been really good. And it's a big reason why I think the Warriors have reason to be hopeful for the short-term future, the near future. But he was suspended twice, 2 separate times, missed 24 total games this season. And it got to a point after his second suspension when he clocked Yusuf Nurkic down in Phoenix, where there were a number of smart minds in the NBA world that were thinking one more transgression, Draymond, your NBA career is over. And it was so dramatic that there were a number of Warrior fans calling this very station, and perhaps some hosts as well, who thought, you know what? I don't know if the Warriors can keep putting up with this. This is getting too much. It's time to move on from Draymond. That was a legitimate argument made by a lot of people after that second suspension. Okay, so Draymond Green, he's had his issues this year. That's one of your 4 starters. Klay Thompson, searching too much with his shot, trying to get back his Hall of Fame, his peak form. He can't get it, but he doesn't want to. He wants to keep holding on to that hope, but he just can't let go of the rope and take a back seat a little bit. Eventually, he settles in to a bench role. And Steve Kerr and Klay Thompson can say that's not a demotion, but it kind of is a demotion. At the very least, something was wrong with him in the starting lineup. You got to move him out. Something was not going well for Klay Thompson. 2 of your 5 starters. Then Kevon Looney. He can't even get a single second in the rotation anymore, and he was one of the main reasons you won a championship 2 years ago. 3 of your 5 starters struggling big time this season. The Warriors and Steve Kerr needing to take dramatic action to help fix that. And then your 4th of 5 starters, Andrew Wiggins, has been the ire of Warrior fans all season long. Got to a point where he left the team again, and we were wondering if he was ever going to come back. A number of people wanted him traded before the deadline. And now there's a legitimate argument that the Warriors' best move going forward would be to trade him in the offseason. When you consider those things, what have happened to 4 of the Warriors' entrenched starters at the beginning of the season, and you look that they're somehow 4 games over 500 and are still competing to make the postseason and still have hope alive at actually doing something in the playoffs, I have to believe that this is a successful season. And the only reason it is because you lucked into, you could call it luck, you lucked into two rookies who are playing out of their minds right now.
Well, you didn't luck into it. You scouted. And
you got a little bit lucky.
You found players that you liked, and you were able to get them both. And Podziemski was a first-round draft pick, and you realized that TJD was a guy who was falling in the draft, and word has it through the agent, who happens to be the brother of your own GM, that he wanted to play from the Warriors. So that wasn't really luck. That was connections. And you mentioned all the four starters, and you're right in part, but you're also wrong at the same time, because Kevon Looney was never going to be a core piece of this team. And to say that he was a key contributor to their championship run,
really,
he was a contributor. He was not a key contributor.
He had multiple 20-rebound games in that postseason.
It was good. He played great. He played his best basketball.
We're talking about he was going to get a statue outside of Chase Center. That's how good he was.
Get a statue. Don't be ridiculous with a statue.
He turned into like a fan favorite.
He's a fan favorite, but it doesn't mean that he was going to be a mainstay of this year's team. He's played 17 minutes, and they tried to replace him with Šarić, and they couldn't. And Draymond played center, and TJD has emerged of late. And yes, Kevon, you don't really need him anymore.
They don't beat Memphis. They don't beat Memphis without Looney 2 years ago.
Right, but you're over dramatizing his impact in this team. Klay Thompson, since he's gone to the bench, has been great. Again, he hasn't been as good as he was at peak Klay, but if you look at his years since he got hurt twice, he has not been that same player, even when they won a championship. And yeah, Draymond was gone, but when Draymond plays, they're a far better team. And they're probably a 5 seed in the games that just Draymond plays. And Wiggins is Wiggins. And to think that Andrew Wiggins is ever going to be that player that he was before, I think is foolish. So yeah, all those things collectively, I don't think they got lucky with their rookies. And Kuminga stepped up and played great. And here you are, you're still a 10 seed. And if healthy, Steve Kerr's words, they can go on a run. And we saw it against Milwaukee. So I don't think that you can look at this team, even with all those problems you laid out, and you're right about all those issues, they're real issues, but even with all those issues, if this team is totally whole, they can make noise. So to settle for less than at least one series of a victory in the postseason, I think to me is a loser mentality.
Yeah, and I get it. And I honestly, it kind of scared me that Steiny is the only one fighting for me with this take. That's a little scary. Steiny, if you're listening, I love you.
Stay strong.
But a little bit scary, and I was getting a little bit of grief on the text line and the YouTube chat powered by First Norcar Credit Union for that as well. But if you want to call me crazy, I think this is a successful Warriors season no matter what happens the rest of the way. I think it's a success. If you want to call me crazy, if you disagree, first of all, I want to know why, but you can give us a call. Let us know. 888-957-9570. It's Marc Grandi in for Mark Willard today alongside Dan Dibley. So Dibs and Grandi with you here on Willard and Dibs on 95.7 The Game. What if I ask it this way, Dibs? So we know what we know about those 4 Warriors starters. So if I were to tell you before the season began, before you knew anything about Brandon Podziemski, or at least what you knew from him out of the draft, and same for Trayce Jackson-Davis, and think back to what Jonathan Kuminga was this offseason, before his explosion, right?
Right.
So you maybe you feel confident that you're going to get something from Kuminga, but you feel like, Podziemski's going to get a chance to do something, but you don't really feel great that he's going to be what he is now. If we try to erase that from our minds, and I tell you that Draymond misses 24 games due to suspension, Klay Thompson moves to the bench because he struggles in the starting rotation, Kevon Looney is not playing a single second in games now, and Andrew Wiggins leaves the team for personal reasons and struggles all year long with consistency. If I were to tell you that those 4 things and what you knew about those young players entering the season, what would you guess the Warriors' record would be?
Probably a little worse than what it is, but honestly, based on everything you laid out and what we've seen from who they've had and when they've had them, their record should be better than it is. They've given away so many games when Draymond was here and when Klay was still starting and when Andrew was maybe more engaged and all the rest of it. They've given away so many basketball games that their record should be better than what it is. So would they be a lot worse than what they are right now? I don't think so. They might be a little bit worse. They're 34-30. They probably should be 40-24 right now if they wouldn't have given away all those games. And if you would have told me everything you just laid out there with all those guys struggling, maybe they'd be 32-32. Not much worse.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I disagree there. I think they'd be if you told me all those things were going to happen this regular season and you weren't expecting greatness from greatness is too strong of a word. Good things from Podziemski and Trace Jackson Davis and the ascension of Jonathan Kuminga, I would think this team would be, what are they, 34-30 right now? So they played 64 games.
Yep.
I don't know, like 27 wins, something like that.
They're only 11-13 without Draymond. So even when they haven't had Draymond, they still were pretty solid. And Kuminga, he has ascended like I would have expected him to ascend in his third year.